What property can you buy with $8,000 of combined income? And why $8,000? Because if we look at the latest graduate employment survey with 2024 statistics, the median salary of fresh graduate is $4,500. So, I'm already taking a lower expectation of $4,000 each. And you combine two people, husband and wife, total $8,000. For context, when we applied for our flat in 2019, our combined income was only $6,300 as a couple. So if we were to apply a 4% annual salary increment, that will be 6,300 multiplied by 1.04 to the power of 6, and that brings us to $7,971.51, which is very close to $8,000, which is why I'm using this example of $8,000 combined income today. And if you want to join like-minded people talking about property, discussions, finance, and calculations, then join us at over 20,000 members in the Honey Money SG Telegram group for free right now. When we talk about housing, three options will come in. Number 1, HDB BTO built to order flat. Number 2, HDB resale flat. And number 3, private property, and more specifically, private condominiums. So part 1, let's work out the budget because we will need to know your affordability. And most importantly, the loan to value, short form LTV ratio, is now 75%. Whether it is for HDB or private property. LTV is the maximum loan they can borrow from financial institutions or from HDB, which also means your down payment must be at least 25%, of which 5% must be in the form of cash if you are opting for a bank loan. But what is unknown is that maybe you are eligible for HDB grants or your parents can support you financially in your down payment, so that would help. Also, we have to know of this ratio known as the mortgage servicing ratio or MSR, and that's applicable to HDBs only, where the monthly mortgage repayment that you can afford is up to 30% of your monthly income, and that means 30% multiplied by $8,000, that is $2,400 of monthly mortgage. So if we use a mortgage repayment calculator, we will just reverse calculate how much loan are we eligible for. Based on 2,400 monthly mortgage, 2.6% interest rate, and a loan tenure of 25 years, then the result will give you $530,000 of maximum loan. Now, like I said, the LTV ratio is 75%. That means $530,000 must be your 75%. Then if we calculate 100%, how much would that be? And then we will just take 530K divided by 75%, and that will give you 707K, which is the full budget of what property you can afford. And that will also mean for a 25% down payment, we will just take 25% multiplied by 707,000, which gives you $177,000 that you need to build up for your down payment. For HDB, there is a separate stage for down payment. Number 1, you'll pay 10% down payment upon signing the lease agreement. And number 2, you'll pay the remaining 15% upon the collection of your keys. So between number 1 and number 2, how long is the period? That depends on whether you're going for a BTO flat or resale flat. Because for resale flat, it may be in a few months, right? Because resale flat transactions are much faster, maybe 1 to 3 months. But for BTO flats, it may be up to 3 to 5 years, depending on how long your construction phase is. So that will be a time for you to accumulate your funds for the second down payment. And let's move on with a $707,000 budget. What kind of housing can you get? Starting with BTO, built to order flats. Now for BTO flats specifically, I do not recommend you to go for the plus and prime housing because all these have a minimum occupation period or MOP of 10 years, which means only after 10 years you can then sell your flat or rent out your entire flat. Whereas if you go for the standard housing, the MOP is only 5 years. And this difference of 5 years, some of you may think is not important, but there are things that you cannot control, like neighbors. All right, if you have rowdy neighbors, noisy neighbors that you don't want to live with, then it will be very miserable if you have to live with them for another 5 years. And the second thing is, maybe after this 5 years, you have a significant upgrade in your income and you want to upsize your property, either going for a larger flat or you want to go into private property space. But this 5 years is just dragging you down. So don't go for plus or prime models unless you're very sure that you want to stay in that location for the long term. And for today's video, I'll use the February 2025 BTO numbers because May BTO is not released yet as of the date of recording. So by the time you're watching, May BTO may be out. So you have to base it on the new numbers. And I'm going to borrow the data from Stack Homes because they have published a very nice article on this. So credit to Stack Homes article. And based on the BTO pricing for February 2025 BTO, if we look at 5-room flats. We can even afford a Woodlands or Yishun 5-room BTO flat. And that's well within the 707,000 budget because BTOs are heavily subsidized, which is why I always recommend that if you can afford the time to wait for construction, always go for BTO. The only downside is that if you want to choose the standard flats and within your budget, they probably is out of town, like somewhere in the north or west areas. It's probably not in the east or central areas where flats are ultimately more expensive. So you have to pick your poison. If you want a larger flat and you want with a comfortable budget, you probably have to go for more remote location, but actually not so remote lah. Nowadays, every location have their own town center and nearby MRT within a few bus or LRT stops. So it's not too bad, especially if your workplace is not located in the central region of Singapore. Let's look at option 2, which is the resale HDB. What kind of flats can you get with 707k? So I go to Property Guru and I search for 707k and below HDB built year 2015 and above, so that they are not so old flats lah. And I can still find 4-room HDB flats, which means they have 3 bedrooms and 1 living room with 1,000 square feet in OCR or outside central region. But if you want 5-room flats, which is larger in space like 1,200 square feet, you probably need to go in lower cost areas like in the northern or western part, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, for 1,200 square feet at 707k, some of these locations are not too far off from the town center, even though they may be far from the city center. So with $8,000 of combined income, if you can get this 5-room flats, I think it's still an okay option, considering that you do not want to wait for BTO to construct. Otherwise, you could get it at even higher bargain with the option of waiting time. And let's not forget that if you were to purchase HDB, which is public housing, you will be entitled to HDB grants. Firstly, for BTO, the only grant that you are eligible for is the Enhanced Housing Grant. And at $8,000, your eligible grant amount is $20,000, which is exactly what I got back in 2019. So it is already adjusted for inflation. And this housing grant can help you out in your down payment because it did help me pay the down payments out of my CPF and I didn't have to use any of my existing CPF funds for down payment. So I'm very grateful for the housing grants. Then secondly, for HDB resale flats, you can receive a resale flat grant of up to $80,000. Okay, please read the terms and conditions based on how much amount that you can qualify for. Resale flat also has the proximity housing grants, where it's between $20,000 to $30,000 if you live close to your parents or with your parents. Of course, the terms and conditions apply, so make sure to check with HDB website for the latest update. And if you like my sharing so far, I'll really appreciate if you can click on this interactive broadcasting or scan the QR code right here, because every click counts and will pay a commission to support this channel. Thank you. Now lastly, let's look at private property and especially private condominiums. I'm excluding executive condominiums out here because right now all the ECs are so expensive and they start from 3 bedrooms, probably from 1.3 million upwards, which I honestly think that $8,000 combined income, you're not in the budget for 1.3 million and above condominiums. So with a $707,000 budget, what kind of private property can you consider? It's either a 1-bedroom condominium or studio apartment, and more specifically, it will be in the OCR area, which means not in the core central area or the RCR. Now, the problem with this 1-bedroom condos is that it is not good for capital appreciation as well as the exit strategy, because once you want to exit, it will be very hard to sell to families. Who can you sell it to? Either singles who are high flyers or couples who have no kids. So it is a very small pool of people that you could sell it to, which is why the investment ROI may not be as high as you think. And this is ultimately due to the smaller customer base who would like all these 1-bedroom condominiums. But not saying that they are bad investments, it's just that it may not be what you think. But if you just want to use it as a temporary stay to, meet your 3 years SSD seller stamp duty period, then I guess it's still a good option for solitary space away from your parents, or you just want a private living environment for you to improve your creativity and better work productivity. And I do know that some families, because of certain reasons, they may not qualify for HDB, either HDB resale or HDB BTO. So private property may be their only solution. So having said that, I offered my 3 options based on the combined income of $8,000. You can afford a budget of $707,000, assuming you can afford the down payment of $177,000 as well. So it comes to HDB BTO, HDB resale, or private property. My most suggested route is to, of course, go for HDB BTO if you can afford to wait. But if you can't afford to wait, at least you need to afford the HDB resale flat. even though it's more expensive, but time is not on your side. Then if you really want a space away from your parents and you want to live in solitude, you may consider private property if HDB is not the route for you, even though it's very small. But all these examples are just for couples and young families starting out. And if you're a single, you're wondering how much salary you need to afford a condo. I already did a past video on this and it probably needs some update, but some info and calculations are still relevant, so you can check that video out right here.